Necromancy is outlawed during the events of Oblivion thanks to the Mage Guild's new stringent rules put in place by the Arch Mage Traven.
We lost quite a few members when the practice of necromancy was banned.
Relegating the Necromancers in-game to forts, caves, and other Necromancer-specific dungeons. Interestingly, not all Necromancers decide to hide despite the danger to themselves. Or I should say, to others.
Why won't you die?
Today we'll be exploring a mystery that had been bugging me ever since I played Oblivion 15 years ago and was never explained in-game or, to my knowledge, out of the game until now. And that is the untold truth of the Necromancer's occupation and desecration of Cadlew Chapel. To understand the puzzle of the chapel's inhabitants as a whole, let's briefly go over all the pieces at play. Inside the desecrated chapel, we see two necromancers performing a dark ritual. Corpses are littered about, and a body hangs above the now contaminated altar. Human hearts sit as an offering below. To the right is a body of a dead treasure hunter. We see, curiously, the body is still intact and a bloodstain cuts a swath across the floor where the body's being dragged, denoting the treasure hunter's body was brought in from outside the chapel, which is an important fact we'll come back to later. Circling back to the entrance, we see a ladder that leads to a cupola above where a lone skeleton lie, the bones bleached in the sun, and we're gifted a striking view across the Niben and can see the city of Breville. However, we're never actually told in-game explicitly where these necromancers originated and why the uber-exposed Cadlew Chapel. But with a bit of detective work, if we follow the path down the road, we see at the mouth of the Niben a few coffins scattered about and a single mossy boat moored at the pier. So, if the necromancers ferried some bodies to the chapel for their dark rituals, why the chapel specifically, and where did they obtain the bodies? Well, answers can be found starting in the nearby city of Breville. Once entering the city, the hero can hear rumors about Aileron Loche and his debt-related problems. Visiting his wife, Ursan, she reveals that her husband was last seen at the Lonely Suitor Lodge to meet his debtor, Curdan.
I fear for his life. Curdan isn't known for his patience. Please, I'm not wealthy, but I'd give anything to see Aileron again.
Meeting with the orc loan shark, he then explains to the player how to retrieve Ursan's missing husband. He's willing to trade the husband for a missing family heirloom.
Maybe I know him, maybe I don't. But since you're so interested, I know something that could jar my memory. I just learned that a family heirloom, the axe of Dragol, which one of my stupid relatives lost, is located on Fort Grief Island in Niben Bay. Whenever you're ready, and it better be soon, I'll have a boat waiting for you to get to Fort Grief Island.
Now here's where things get interesting. The player needs specifically travel by boat, a boat that wasn't docked previously before the quest began and is identical to the boat seen at Cadlew Chapel. Following this thread, we arrive at Fort Grief, which is set between Breville and Cadlew Chapel as well, and this is easily missed though due to the game's low render distance. Once at the fort, Aileron explains the whole finding of an axe is, unfortunately, a charade, and that the predatory usurper Curdan sends unwitting adventurers or anybody he can dupe, the player included, into his gauntlet, where paying customers hunt live prey.
It appears as though Curdan has tricked another poor soul with his axe story. You haven't guessed it yet? There never was any axe of Dragol. It was just a ruse to lure you out here. I fell for the same trick. In my case, he told me if I retrieved the axe, he'd erase my debts. I was such an idiot to believe him. You're now the prey in Curdan's insane hunt, just like I am. And here we'll most likely die.
After the player escapes the manhunt, they must kill the treacherous Curdan to truly be free. But what does this have to do with Cadlew Chapel? Well, consider the following. In a previous throwaway line, Aileron specifically states,
"Clever ruse. I wonder how many have died falling for it." Curdan doesn't make most of his money being a simple usurer. He also invented what he calls the Hunter's Run. People pay him a great deal of money to hunt and kill living human prey. No questions asked, and he takes care of the bodies.
And that last line in particular struck me, since Fort Grief is an isolated, island-bound fort where it's unlikely the bodies would ever be discovered. Why would Bethesda include that line if it didn't have some narrative or world-building significance? Hence the theory, the Cadlew Chapel Necromancers are those to whom Círdan sells the victims from his hunter's run. The victims are slain, and once enough of them pile up, Círdan packages up the corpses in coffins and has the Necromancers come over and pick them up to do with as they please. They're only a short boat ride away after all, and judging from the coffins at Cadlew Chapel's docks, the Necromancers are receiving coffins by the boatload. And of course, the boats are identical. And what better location for their lair than an isolated chapel only a short distance from the island where they're getting a steady supply of bodies. Now, this theory is also reinforced by the corpse in Cadlew marked Dead Treasure Hunter we saw previously. If you remember the Caught in the Hunt quest, Círdan leads both Alaron and the player to Fort Grief by indicating to them that a family heirloom of his Axe of Dragol is located on the island.
Yeah, it's a battle axe with the word Dragol carved into the haft. Huge. You can't miss it. I ain't gonna draw you a picture.
These victims are usually treasure hunters, in other words. Treasure hunters or the desperate. Anyway, I thought that was a neat little bit of consistent world building solved after all these years, and I want to give a shout out to BrassMonkeyKey17 on Reddit for discovering this theory. Let me know if there are any other stories that wowed you in the Elder Scrolls series that you'd like me to cover, or mysteries to explore. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, traveler.
By Ismir's beard, we've got ourselves a live one. Yeah!